far better friends with Brian Higgins than you were with John O'Keefe. That's fair to say.
Yes.
On Friday, you were asked whether or not you knew my client, Karen Reed, correct? This meeting a couple days ago, during your direct examination.
I believe so, yes.
You were also asked the same series of questions at another grand jury not involving the Commonwealth. You remember that in June of 2023?
Yes.
I want to be clear about this other hearing. That was a non-Commonwealth hearing in front of a grand jury, correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Lally and his colleagues were not there, is that right?
Yes.
I was not there, Mr. Yannetti was not there.
Yes.
Or Miss Little.
Right.
Okay. At that June 2023, and I'm going to talk about a couple of dates, so I don't want to be confusing. At that June 2023 non-Commonwealth hearing, you were asked some questions about whether or not you knew Karen Reed before January 28th, 2022.
I believe
That night in question.
I believe so, yes.
And you testified, before you testified, you were sworn an oath.
Yes.
Same oath that you swore in this trial, correct?
Yes.
You swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And you knew that you were testifying under penalty of perjury in that hearing as well, correct?
Yes.
And you testified at that non-Commonwealth grand jury that you, quote, believe Karen was with John the night he came into Hillside, a female that looked similar to Karen, from the waterfall came in with him on that night, and I assume that was her, but I can't say for sure, end quote. That was your testimony before that grand jury.
Yes.
But you were also asked a similar question in April of 2022 by Mr. Lally at his grand jury. Do you remember that?
No.
Let's start at the beginning. Before you testified in the April 2022 grand jury, more than a year earlier, and just 3 months after this incident, you were sworn an oath, correct?
Yes.
The same oath that you took in June of 2023, right?
Yes.
And the same oath you took on Friday.
Yes.
Isn't it true that you were asked the question whether or not you knew Karen Reed on January 28th, 2022, and you testified, quote, I've never met or seen her before, end quote.
No, I don't recall that.
Didn't you indicate that you just testified, that you reviewed your grand jury testimony in anticipation for this trial?
Yes.
You read the whole thing,
Yes.
and you don't recall making that statement?
No.
May I approach you on it?
Yes, and I'll see counsel at sidebar when you leave that with the witness.
Just please take a look at that.
Sure.
May I approach you on it?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, have you had an opportunity to review that?
I have. Thank you.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you said before the grand jury in April of 2022?
Yes, but you didn't read the whole quote though.
Right. The whole quote is the following. Question, so the female you had never met before, is that fair to say? Answer, no. I've never met her or seen her before, period. Maybe once, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation with her. That was the entire quote, correct?
That's the entire quote, yes. That's not what you read earlier, but yes.
Well, what I read earlier was, I've never met or seen her before. Those words came out of your mouth, correct?
That's not my whole sentence, no.
You said, I've never met or seen her before, and then you said, maybe once, but I've never had a conversation with her, I don't think.
Right, yes, that's my sentence.
Okay, so which is it, Mr. Albert? What were you saying? Were you saying you met her and had a conversation with her? Or were you saying, I've never met or seen her before? Which one of those two things was true?
I was saying that I've met her maybe once.
Actually, what you said was, I've never met her or seen her before. Your words, not my words, sir. Isn't that right?
No, because in the next sentence I say, I met her maybe once.
So you literally changed your testimony within your own testimony.
Objection.
No, can you answer that, Mr. Albert?
I believe I qualified my first sentence with a second sentence.
So what changed between the first sentence, where you indicated unequivocally, I've never met or seen her before, and the second sentence when you said, maybe once?
I'm not sure what I was thinking at the time that I said that.
Isn't it true, Mr. Albert, not only had you met Miss Reed, but you had spent several hours with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe 6 days before this incident. Isn't that true?
No.
In fact, on January 22nd, 2022, 6 days before January 28th, you socialized with Karen Reed at the Hillside Bar for several hours, didn't you?
I was at the Hillside Bar the week prior, yes.
It was a Saturday night, correct?
Yes.
You were at the bar.
Yes.
There were several other folks at the bar, correct?
Several people, yes.
That included Chris Albert, your brother,
Yes.
a guy named Tim Daly,
Yes.
D-A-I-L-Y, is that right?
I'm not sure how to spell his last name.
Julie Albert was there.
Yes.
Jen McCabe was there.
Yes.
Matt McCabe was there.
Yes.
John O'Keefe was there.
Yes, he was.
And Karen Reed was there, correct?
Yes, she was.
In fact, Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'd like you to take a look at a photograph. Just look at that to yourself for a second. Tell me if you familiarize yourself with it, and then look up when you're ready.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Actually, I don't need to. Mr. Albert, you can stay there. Do you recognize the photograph that's before you?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
Well, I recognize the people within the photograph, and the background of the photograph looks like the hillside.
Does that appear to be a photograph that was taken on January 22nd, 2022?
Yes.
You were at the Hillside Bar?
Yes.
May I publish this, Your Honor?
Okay, is it already in evidence or
It
you?
is not, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
So you put it in evidence first and then you
May I
publish
have
it?
that marked as next in order?
Yes.
And then,
That'll be Exhibit 67.
Thank you.
permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. You see that photograph? It's the same photograph that you're looking at in front of you?
Yes.
Describe who the people are going from left to right, sir.
Chris Albert, myself, John O'Keefe, and Tim Daly.
And this was on January 22nd, 2022, at about 11 p.m., correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, who took the photo?
I don't know.
Karen Reed took the photo, didn't she?
I have no idea who took that photo.
Karen Reed took the photo, you're literally staring right at her, correct?
I don't know who took the photo.
Well, who else do you think it could have been?
Well, there were a lot of people there. You mentioned my sister, two sister-in-laws, a brother-in-law. I'm not sure.
We can turn the lights back on, please, and take the photo down.
Did you ever see this photo from Jen McCabe?
No,
Did you ever see it from Julie Albert?
no,
Chris Albert didn't take it. He's in it.
right,
Tim didn't take it. He's in it.
right,
You obviously didn't take it.
right.
And who's the guy on the far right?
Tim,
That was Tim. Who's the guy next to Tim?
John, right?
So who do you think?
Do you still need the photo up? I'm sorry, I thought you were done with it.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was John, yeah.
Okay. With the
Yes.
baseball cap on, correct?
Yes.
I don't need it. No, okay.
Okay.
So given the fact that you were never shown that, you've never seen that photo before today, correct?
I saw a photo that was sent to me in Discovery or to my attorney that showed only, I believe, me and John in the picture.
Okay.
I think it's the same photo, only that's blown up to show everybody.
Got it. So given what you now know about that night, and who was there, the fact that John is posing for a photo right next to you, who do you think took the photo, sir?
I have no idea who took the photo.
Could it have been Karen Reed?
Objection.
Sustained. Let's move along from
In
that, please.
fact, you were interacting with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe throughout that evening, correct?
I remember having conversations with John that evening. I don't necessarily remember speaking to Karen that evening.
Irrespective of whether or not you spoke to her, you obviously saw her there.
Yes.
You were there with her for a couple of hours.
Well, I wasn't there with her for a few hours. I was there with other people.
Okay, so without splitting hairs, she was there, correct?
Yes.
John was there.
Yes.
You were socializing with John.
Yes.
She was right next to him.
Sometimes, perhaps not, maybe all the times I was talking to him, no.
So you were socializing not exclusively with her,
Right.
but certainly socializing with her 6 days before John O'Keefe ended up dead on your lawn, correct?
We were there at the same time, yes.
And yet, when you were asked 3 months later, do you know Karen Reed, or how do you know Karen Reed, the actual question was, so the female you've never met before, is that fair to say? That was Mr. Lowey's question, and your immediate response was, no, I've never met her or seen her before, correct? That's what you said.
That's not my whole response, no.
That's what you said immediately upon that question, sir.
That's the beginning of my response, yes.
That was the first sentence out of your mouth.
Yes.
You also testified at the subsequent grand jury in June of 2023. When asked what was your impression of Miss Reed, you said, quote, I honestly didn't really have one. I didn't have any conversation with her. I just kind of saw her from across the table. I didn't really think of it either way. Correct?
I don't know what that question is referring to. Is that for the waterfall or is that for Hillside?
Hillside.
Okay, yes.
All right. So in June of 23, a little over a year later, your testimony significantly changed from no, I've never met or seen her before, to I really didn't have a conversation with her. I saw her across the table. I didn't really think of it either way. Correct?
No, I think those are very similar testimonies.
When you were asked in the other proceeding, and this is about the waterfall, question, did you talk to Karen Reed at the waterfall that night? You answered unequivocally, I did not. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's what you told the June grand jury, June of 23, correct?
Are you referring to the state grand jury? Or?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
That's why I'm using dates. I'm trying to be careful.
right.
April,
I'm just not clear on what all the dates were.
I'll see if I can clarify.
Okay,
April 2022, state grand jury. June of 2023, a different grand jury.
okay.
Okay? When you were asked at the June of 2023 grand jury, did you ever talk with Karen Reed at the waterfall that night? Your answer was, I did not. Correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. With the court's permission, could I play a small clip from Exhibit 53?
Okay.
starting at timestamp 11:53 and 15 seconds. If we could just play this, and I would direct your attention, sir, to the upper right-hand corner. Pause it. Do you recognize the individuals in this clip?
Yes.
Do you recognize that person?
Yes, I believe that's me.
Do you recognize that person?
I do. I believe that's the defendant.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
what does it appear you are doing as it relates to Ms. Reed in this clip?
It appears that I'm talking at the table. I don't know if it's specifically to her, but
Go ahead and play it. Stop. Did you see the part of the clip starting at 11:53 and 15 seconds, going back about 30 seconds?
yes.
Okay. Who did it appear you were talking directly to, and who did it appear was answering directly to you?
I looked like I was speaking, but I can't say for sure that I was directly talking to the defendant.
Even though it looked like you were looking right at her and leaning toward her and
I-
she was answering you.
I was definitely looking that way. I don't remember the conversation.
The reality is, we can take that down. The reality is, Mr. Albert, you had many conversations with her throughout the night, like you would with anybody else you were socializing with, correct?
No.
It's not like you ignored her through that evening.
No, I think that just the positioning of me on the other side of the table, I didn't have really much contact.
There was only one person between you, and that was Mr. Higgins.
No, I don't think that was the setup for the whole night.
I didn't say the whole night.
Right.
I'm talking about right then.
Right, so,
That's an example.
right, what's your question? Rephrase your question, please.
Did you or did you not have conversations with Karen Reed that night?
I do not recall having conversations with Karen Reed that night at all, no.
And that's what you told the grand jury under oath, notwithstanding this video evidence to the contrary.
Yes, I don't think that video shows that.
I'm going to let that stand. Next question, please.
You were interviewed by Michael Proctor on January 29th, the day after this incident, correct?
Yes,
And that was 6 days after you spent several hours, Karen Reed, at this event, correct? 6 days later.
yes,
You were asked by Michael Proctor whether or not you knew or what your relationship was with Karen Reed, correct?
I don't recall if he asked me that.
Did you say to Michael Proctor, quote, that you quote, did not know Karen Reed, end quote?
I may have, yes.
But when you made that statement, you did not know that Ms. Reed had a photograph of you at the Hillside Bar, correct? You didn't know that photo existed, did you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Sir, you were trying to distance yourself from Ms. Reed in your interview with Michael Proctor, weren't you?
Objection.
Were you?
No, I was not.
Mr. Albert, you were trying to distance yourself from knowing Ms. Reed in your grand jury testimony with, well, I'll use the date, in your April 2022 grand jury testimony, weren't you?
No,
You were further trying to distance yourself from Ms. Reed in your June 2023 grand jury testimony as well, correct?
no,
You thought that it was important to try to deny knowing John O'Keefe and Karen Reed during those interviews and or that testimony.
Objection.
Sustained.
Mr. Albert, you knew that if you admitted having a relationship with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, you'd have a lot to answer for when Karen Reed's boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask the question differently.
You knew that there would be questions about your relationship with Karen Reed if it were known that you knew her before her boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later, correct? There would be questions.
Objection.
You can ask it a different way. That's sustained.
So you lied under oath when you said, I've never met or seen her before, correct?
No, because that wasn't my whole statement.
The sentence, I've never met or seen her before, pretty unequivocal, isn't it?
That was not the context of my whole sentence.
But that's the words that came, those are the words that came out of your mouth, right?
Initially, and then I remembered that I had met her once.
Let me just ask it this way.
Sure.
Is that sentence true or false? That you had never met or seen her before? True or false?
That portion of that sentence is false.
Let's get this on the record. Did John O'Keefe come into your house at 34 Fairview at any time on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not. I wished he had.
And you're as sure about that as you are about the statement that you had never met or seen Karen Reed in your life,
Objection.
correct?
Sustained.